Everyone, welcome back to the Creatine Show. It's a cozy one this week. I have found a quiet corner to record and catch up with you guys in. I'm sat on the floor, I'm wearing a nice oversized jumper. So let's dive straight in. This week we're going to be touching on some topics that caught my attention this week as far as creatine goes. There is so much happening in this space, but I have got a couple of things that I wanted to share with you and see if you have any thoughts. As always, this is my little corner of the internet to talk about creatine candidly, and none of the things that I'm going to share with you today are specifically to do with my company Generise that I run together with my dad, and so this is pretty much just my corner of the internet. Thank you for being here. It's nice to see a couple of people subscribing as well, so if you like this video this week, feel free to share your thoughts below or give it a thumbs up even, which is the first time I'm saying that, but maybe it helps, so go ahead and do it, and it'll just make me happy to see that somebody's out there listening. So there is nothing really to show you, so I always like these videos to be more like something that you could put on in the background while you are pottering around, doing a workout, even working, and I'm just sat here chatting with you kind of like to a friend. So I've got my laptop with me down here with a couple of pointers and things that I can just reference as we go, but other than that, let's dive right in. So another celebrity has come out and publicly spoken about creatine this week. That is none other than Halle Berry, an actress who I'm actually not that familiar with, but she does come out with some PR every once in a while, and at the moment she has really been speaking out on the topic of menopause, of course, which is something that women go through and that is being spoken about more and more. And we already do know that there is the potential for creatine to be quite promising around that hormonal change and during those years of a woman's life when they are going through menopause. And so she was on a podcast, and I'd already seen her on a stage somewhere with Mark Hyman talking on this topic as well, but this specific article which I'm referencing from the Women's Health Online, which was published just a few days ago, is talking about Halle Berry's appearance on the Vogue podcast, which has the name The Run Through. It's actually the first time that I am hearing about it. If you're a listener, let me know. Maybe I'm missing out on something if this is the kind of topics that they like to cover. But it otherwise was not drawn to my attention until now. So she's been talking about things that she's been doing to help specifically minimize how menopause and being postmenopausal is giving her brain fog, which is something that I understand a lot of women do experience. Even just through different times of the month, it can be possible to experience brain fog. I know as a Hashimoto's autoimmune girl, I do experience brain fog sometimes as well. Although I'm never really sure if it's brain fog and I'm not just tired, so I'm not sure how to distinguish the difference, and I don't just want to jump on the bandwagon and say that I have brain fog when maybe I am just tired on some days. But this can include being forgetful, feeling like you can't focus, feeling mentally tired and just not very sharp, like you're in a bit of a haze basically and not ever quite waking up properly in the morning as you go through the day. She has been talking about some things that have helped her. So she's mentioning eating more carbohydrates, switching to cardio-based exercise like running, and actually also her sleep as well, and improving her sleep. And then she gets onto the topic of vitamins and supplements. Now, as a bit of a creatine girl, I live and breathe this space. As soon as she started talking about brain fog, I was looking for information in this article to understand the quantity. Was she going to come out and say that we do need to be taking more than 5 grams to help alleviate brain fog? Because it's becoming more and more apparent now from the research community that to actually have creatine as a supplement get into the bloodstream and pass over this barrier that our brains have, which is called the blood-brain barrier, you most likely need to consume and supplement with more than just 5 grams. And so I was immediately looking in this article to see, is she going to come out and sort of really say, I take 20 or 30 grams a day? And in this article, I did not see her talking about it. The only part where they reference how much creatine you should supplement with is at the end of the article, and the Women's Health author has stated that generally 3 to 5 grams will be a good amount for somebody to supplement with. It's the most commonly studied quantity, which is true. However, what I'm missing here is that the studies and the research that I understand are not actually clearly stating that that quantity, which is on the low end, 3 grams, would be enough to cross the blood-brain barrier and actually alleviate true symptoms of brain fog. And so I feel like this is really, really good for creatine awareness, but then maybe not actually following through all the way in terms of communicating dosages and how different amounts of creatine will be doing different things in your body, which is something that we're coming to understand more and more with the current research that is coming out. However, it is interesting to note that Halle basically did like a 180 for her own understanding of creatine and getting to the point where she wanted to actually supplement with it. And so she says something nice here, that she actually never thought that she would want to take creatine, and she always thought that it was for bodybuilders, and that it really was just in recent years that she kind of flipped her own understanding and her own willingness to want to supplement with such a thing. And so she's really seen the sort of messaging around it change, obviously, which more and more women are experiencing. Even just this article and somebody like Halle Berry coming out and talking about how it's helping her, that will already this week make 100,000, tens of thousands of more women go online or go to a shop and buy creatine for the first time. And so this kind of cultural messaging and comfort level coming from familiar faces, even if that is just a movie star, an actress, it can do a lot for the ingredient. And so I would say it's a good thing. Again, creatine being out there, and I don't look to celebrities for my sort of health information and for my advice on such things, but the reality is that many people do. And so I think this article is good. I might need to go and watch the whole podcast episode. I'll make a point of doing that over this week, which is definitely something that I probably want to get a little bit more context around, how she's actually talking about creatine and maybe how much she takes and supplements with. The article then goes into how creatine works, talking about the ATP cycle for energy production in the cells, which is great. And they also talk about how it is actually a naturally occurring compound found in food, focusing on meat and fish. So the messaging in this article is really breaking down creatine from being for gym people and feeling like a intense muscle growth nutrient, and making it feel like something that is coming from food naturally, and then you can supplement if you want to, and it might help with things such as brain fog. So this is really, really good, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think, because creatine does go through these hype cycles. After a celebrity speaks about it, we see some things going around online, and the only thing I'm missing here is the information about the dosing, and that 3 to 5 grams is quite generally understood to maybe not be enough to actually have those cognitive, or give us those cognitive function benefits that creatine can deliver when it is, in a higher dose and getting into your brain in the right way. So I'd be curious to sort of see a little bit more information about that and how they would communicate it in a way that's simple enough for the mainstream to understand, which is potentially why they left that point out. But anyway, I'm always happy to see creatine from a positive perspective being in a bit of a headline on a news media website, which is exactly what we have here. Talking about women and creatine, I'm going to give a shout out again to Dr. Darren Kandau, because he did post another pretty epic truth bomb on LinkedIn specifically, which was just a graphic that said there's no such thing as creatine for women, or creatine for women doesn't exist. And that needs to be communicated really, really clearly. As we see creatine like this Halle Berry Women's Health article being positioned more and more for women's health across the lifespan, it also needs to be really, really re-emphasized and reinforced from the science community, and hopefully from brands and founders as well, that there is no special creatine monohydrate ingredient that will do more for women than another. There are products that will mix creatine with collagen or some other vitamins. I know there's a really exciting company coming from Germany at the moment called Anders, and they are doing stick packs with creatine and a multitude, I think up to like 6 other vitamins and essential nutrients that can promote female health. That's quite different, but the actual molecule and the synthesized creatine supplement powder is exactly the same. There is right now no special form of creatine monohydrate for women specifically. It doesn't exist. So it's really, really important to not, when you are going and looking for an ingredient and a creatine product for you as a woman, don't be misled by pink packaging. I know we spoke a couple of episodes ago about Havasu having just a pink tub and it costs more than the same powder in a green or a black tub. Don't fall for that, because there's really no difference. Somewhere down the line, maybe there will be some amazing sort of actually bioengineered creatine molecule that is more bioavailable in the body for females to supplement with. But as it stands right now, Dr. Darren Kandau is absolutely correct. There is no special creatine monohydrate for women. It doesn't exist. So you can literally just have a tub that you share with your husband, your male family members, and it will do exactly the same thing for you as it's doing for them. And so I just think it's nice to see the science community being quite bold and stepping up when certain things need to be said. And, you know, people love to use their science to help sell their products, but then they kind of say what they want to get their products sold and maybe stick a higher price tag on it for a female audience. And I'm just not here for that. So Darren, if you're listening and you've found my YouTube channel, keep being that way. I know you did it a few months ago as well, calling out how the science community and the researchers only earn like a fraction of the total like economic market drive and revenue that's being generated from creatine right now, which is also a really interesting topic. I might want to touch on that more in another episode. But bottom line, there's no special creatine for women. Ladies, just you borrow your husbands if you're curious about it. Don't go and buy one that is pink and costing more, because it's exactly the same, unless you want to maybe try a product from Array that has some other ingredients to also just help with some other benefits as well. But if you're just looking for creatine, the benefits of creatine, whether that's for postmenopausal brain fog or whether it is because you want to start lifting weights in the gym, which we should all be doing, then just use the same one as the guys that you know and you will be absolutely good. No need to buy a special one, and Dr. Darren Kandau is correct. Next up on my list of things that I've had a bit of a bee in my bonnet about is the increase of B2C brands saying that they are made in the United States, that they are made in America. And creatine is not made in America right now. It's still only manufactured and made, synthesized in China or Germany, and that is just the way that things are. And I'm seeing an increase in gummy companies or even just powder brands that are selling powdered creatine, claiming and saying made in the United States, whether that is on their website as like a little tag or whether it's in an Instagram bio as like a USP. And it's just not true. I know there are consumers out there that are really, really committed to buying things from their own countries, buying things locally, whether that is like honey or eggs. But as far as creatine goes, unless you live in Germany or you live in China, you are not able to buy creatine that is coming from the country where you live. And I'd like to understand what that claim is then trying to achieve, because you are ultimately not made in America. Your product is probably packaged and put together and, you know, finalized and formed in the United States, which is great. But the bulk ingredient, which is ultimately what people are paying for, is either made in China or Germany. And I'm just not here for that, because I think that the signals are there that a certain demographic of consumer is looking for American-made things. There's a whole group of people that are very much pro, you know, the reindustrialization of the United States, which is where creatine manufacturing will come into play, and that's where Alexander, who I've mentioned before from American Creatine, is really trying to bring production back into the US. But it's not easy, and it hasn't like magically happened overnight. So if you are seeing made in the United States on creatine gummies, if you're seeing it on powdered products, it's not actually true. The creatine is still not coming from the United States. So it's quite an empty claim, and I feel like it is misleading to attract that certain type of customer that would be valuing and prioritizing such a claim, and it's actually not the case. And so then I'm just like, what is that gray area that is then even interesting at all? Oh, you package your product in the US, it's like literally potted and sealed and going down the production line in individual packets in the US, okay, but you are still importing something from the other side of the world. So I'm not sure if this is just contributing towards consumer confusion around creatine right now, or if it is just trying to tap into a certain type of audience that values that made in the United States angle. But it's not accurate, and I don't think that we should be saying that products are made in the United States if the bulk core ingredient and all of the, you know, benefits and the promises and the science that you're selling is just not coming from that country at all. So let me know what you guys think. Where do we draw the line there? Is it okay? Is it not okay? And ultimately, if you're a creatine company and your creatine is from China, you should not be saying that your product is made in the United States, because that's just objectively not true. So let's be honest and make sure that consumers understand as well that creatine right now is just coming from two places and nowhere else. So unless it is a different form of creatine, I'd like to jump in and say that there are a couple of creatines that are not a monohydrate that are manufactured in the United States, but I'm specifically talking right now about creatine monohydrate gummies or creatine monohydrate powdered products. So made in the USA doesn't even exist. Let's stop saying that. Last but not least, I have a tip for you, which I learned from an article that I was reading that got some pointers from Supco and specifically Jordan, who are just doing amazing things right now. I think Supco are really flipping things upside down in terms of providing certification and authenticating the efficacy of supplements. And so what they do is they actually go out and buy things on the shelf, test them, and then let the company who made it know how the ingredients performed in the tests. Because the other way that this usually happens is that a brand will take their own ingredients and final products to a third-party verification testing company and give them what they want to have tested. But Supco is kind of flipping that upside down, as I said, and they're not letting you bring your own product, they're just taking it straight off the shelf. And so Jordan is great, and also had my dad on his podcast a couple of months ago. I think you can find it on the Creatine OG Instagram, or also on our business website at generise.com. We have a page with all the podcasts that my dad and I have done, and the Supco podcast is on there if you're interested. But anyway, I digress. What's the tip? The tip is that actually, if you are consuming or using a creatine monohydrate powder, you need to shake it. You need to shake it because creatine can compact at the bottom of a tub and become more dense, whereas the top layer might still be a little bit more airy and have like more sort of space between the granules, as you might want to call them. And so he was talking about this in terms of actually getting the right amount of creatine, because we use scoops. I'm pretty sure none of us are using like a scale to weigh and measure our creatine that way. We're eyeballing and we're using the scoops. And so what can happen is, as you go through the month, however long your tub lasts you, it might be the case that your dosage at the beginning of the tub is actually less than 5 standard grams, just because of the amount of sort of air and just space that is in between the powder. And then as the month goes by, especially in transit, for example, or before the creatine is even bought by you, it's had been shipped around and it's been sat in store, or it's been sat in a warehouse or in the back of a truck or a pallet. And so the bottom will start to compact and become more dense, which means that actually when you get to that part of the pot, you're going to be taking scoops that are, you know, pushed down, which is interesting. Even thinking like about when I used to bake cakes with my mom or with my grandmother, you would always, you know, like scoop your flour and then maybe press it down or level off the top, or you would be using scales. I know Americans like to bake with cups, but the correct way surely is to actually use a scale. So if anybody uses a scale for actually measuring out their daily creatine dose, please let me know. But I thought that was just a good pointer, because if you just even flip your tub up every couple of days or once a week, it's going to help keep the consistency of the creatine from top to bottom just be equal and even, and then ensure that you're actually getting sort of the same quantity on a daily basis, which is something I'd never really thought about in that way and never really considered such a simple tip before. So Jordan is full of great tips. You can also follow him on LinkedIn. He posts really frequently with lots of information, not just about what Supco is up to, but also just things to do with taking supplements, taking vitamins, and doing it the right way. So I use a powdered creatine. I have it in one of those IKEA sealable glass jars, and I'm going to make a point of just flipping it upside down a little bit more every once in a while to make sure that I'm not having this sort of like compounded heavier dose at certain times of the month as it's sort of becoming a little bit denser at the bottom. So those are the 3 things that I wanted to touch on this week: Halle Berry and the postmenopausal brain fog. I wanted to talk about made in America claims that might not be accurate at all, and then this tip for flipping your creatine tub every once in a while to make sure that you are not accidentally, you know, dosing a little bit inaccurately as the weeks go by. So it's really important to stay consistent, and there are small ways in which we accidentally might not be as consistent as we think we are. So with all of that being said, I'm going to jump off, and I will be back next week. And I don't know if this will be the same setting. This is a bit of an unusual place to be sat on the floor, but it was a quiet little place to record for this week for you guys. So thank you so much for sticking around. If you're interested in learning more about creatine, not from me, but from some experts on the topic that have actual clinical backgrounds as physicians and also in the pharmaceutical world, we are organising a webinar. It's totally free. It's on Wednesday, the 25th of March, and you can register through the Eventbrite link, which is all over our media platforms at the moment. You can jump to the website, LinkedIn, find me on Instagram through the company as well, and you are more than welcome to join. This webinar is focusing on speaking to healthcare professionals, general practitioners, medical students, to give them some more confidence around what's actually true about creatine. A lot of patients are coming into clinics at the moment with questions based on things that they're seeing in 15-second TikToks or like in articles about Halle Berry, and let's face it, she's not an expert, and you might want to get some answers from people that know quite a lot about creatine and what's actually right. So please join us. I'll be there. I'm not hosting, I'm not presenting, but I will be there to support my team and also just see how everything goes, and I'm sure I will learn something myself as well. So anyway, as always, supplement with creatine this week, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.